I'm Chosen Architect, and this is Project Architect 2. Welcome back to some more Project Architect 2, and today we're jumping back into the dimension that we created last episode that contains all of the raw gold ore blocks that you see behind me. Now, I did read you guys' comments from the last episode, and a lot of you guys suggested do diamond blocks. That is one of the best, and 100% I will probably be jumping into diamond blocks before long. It is a little bit more expensive to get into those diamond blocks, but honestly, I would just have to replace the dimlet from this dimension and just swap it out. But in the meantime, this entire cube that, remember, we said was like 39 by 39, this thing is now done, and we have ourselves some EMC to claim, and this is quite a bit. So this should equate to roughly 1 billion EMC when I put this in. And there we go. We now have ourselves 1 billion EMC to play with, and that's a lot. So I don't even know if I need to worry about it right now. This will 100% carry us all the way until we get into the chapter that is the EMC mastery section, which will lead us into this EMC automation. I almost guarantee it. So now, after dropping off some of that freshly learned research from the RF Tools dimension, I think it's time to dabble a little bit in some new science, some new technology. And that new technology is going to be industrial foregoing. Now, I also want to get a little bit into cyclic today. So both of those mods are going to be the thing that we do. Now, I did go ahead and prep up a few things, and I want to talk about this because this is actually very important. And this goes for most mod packs, including those coming out in the future. If you want, for example, a modular router or mini machines that actually place blocks into your world, you need to know this. This is very important. So for example, this placer module will not place blocks. Like you notice right now, it just placed a block, but it will not place blocks unless you change this setting. So all you have to do is open your inventory, and up here in the top left, you have a team setting. All you have to do is click that team setting, and then you need to go into settings. And you should be able to do this no matter if cheats enabled or what have you. It doesn't really matter. You need to make sure that the allow fake player section in your claims is set to true. And by doing this, this will allow this to actually place blocks. Same goes for the Wither Builder and many of the other placing machines. So now, with that knowledge in place, let's talk about what these are. So what I did is I made some fluid extractors from industrial foregoing. These are essentially pulling from acacia logs, and they do receive some power to get a little bit of a bonus. They don't need power, however, and they are storing latex. We're going to use this latex to dive a little bit deeper into industrial foregoing. This is the primary crafting fluid that is needed for this mod. Now, I want to show you one of the most optimal ways of getting the industrial foregoing machines set up. And so that does include taking our fluid and storing it inside of an external sort of tank, and then allowing Applied Energistics to connect to that with a storage bus, not necessarily storing it inside of a card, or a cell, I should say. Now, we essentially need to get the latex out of our fluid extractors here that are just constantly running, and they're currently full, and I need to get them stored into a tank. And I typically get drawn to tanks that look really good, and I think the mob grinding utils tanks look fantastic. So if we take a look here, I'm going to go ahead and place this one down. Let's place it down right here. Notice how nice that looks, and it will actually show us the fluids on the inside, and the bottom of it is actually solid, so that way whenever we hook anything to the bottom, we want to actually see it through the floor, which will be pretty nice for concealing what this looks like, while also letting us have a gauge of how much fluid we have stored. Now, the way that I'm going to link these two up to this is through a new block called an entangled block. And this is pretty neat. Essentially, if we place an entangled block here and here, we can link these entangled blocks to this tank, essentially having this tank's position stored here and here, allowing us to send fluid into this single block located here. And the way we do this is through an entangled binder. So if I shift right click, I now have this block selected. I can right click this, and you'll notice that tank is stored in here, and this is now linked directly to this. And I can also store it over here as well, allowing us to place in some pipes just like this. And I want to use some mech pipes because I think that mech pipes are pretty cool. You can see the fluid actually flowing through them. So now, with that setup, I'm also going to need a configurator. And I don't know if I actively have a configurator just yet. So thankfully, we have a little bit of a mechanism set up. So I can grab that. And the configurator allows me to set this to extract, just like so. And just like I said, you can see the fluids piping through here, and there's just something about that I love seeing. I just love seeing like things actually happening. And sometimes that kind of makes the pipes from the pipes mod a little bit meh. They're good for like things that you can't see, but I don't know, there's something about seeing items flowing through pipes and things like that, even if the efficiency is a little bit reduced in that case. But notice this is sending it through, and right here we now have latex building up in this jumbo tank. Now this is super important because our next step is going to be actually crafting with this stuff. Now this next step in our automation process is going to involve sort of upgrading our Applied Energistics system just a little bit. Essentially what I need to do is I need to gain access to the sides of this controller and wirelessly send channels over here, which is going to be where I'm going to do a lot of automation. Now to make auto crafting a little bit simpler, I have upgraded and I did go ahead and craft 2 more terminals. So I have a wireless pattern terminal and then the access terminal, and you can combine all of these together, but I like to have them all sort of separated like this. And that way I set keybinds to them. So I have Control E set to open my terminal, Control R to open up the pattern encoder, and Control F to access my pattern terminal so I can go ahead and place those newly crafted recipes in here. And this makes things a whole lot easier, so I'm not having to constantly come back to my terminal over and over again to be able to craft them. I can just be over here and I can craft things on demand. And this tends to save me a ton of time having all 3 of those made like that. And speaking of more crafting, some other things I did make was a requester. And this thing's pretty neat. You can place in things that you want to keep constantly in stock. For example, I want all of my basic logic processors to be in stock. And so I have the stock amount set to 64. And so what it's going to do is if it drops below 64, it's going to craft a batch of 4 more processors, which I feel is pretty equivalent considering 4 is what we can make at one given time. And later on down the road, we'll probably end up keeping more things in stock using that requester. So now speaking of auto crafting, this is actually what we want. This thing right here is called an ME wireless connector, and this is from Extended AE. You're also going to need yourself an ME wireless setup kit, and this is how we're actually going to link these. Now, this does cost a little bit of RF, so make sure you have RF set up. I did go ahead and make sure all of these are upgraded. This is producing like 27,000 RF per tick, and I did have to upgrade my fluid pipe here to a little bit higher tier version to keep up with all the lava demands. And I almost forgot to mention, those were simply set up by just having a configuration set up with input output on the top. This is why it's so nice with Applied Energistics and simply having a pattern provider on the top of these machines. Sends the items in, does the process, sends them back out. Now the induction smelter, this one has to be set up a little different. You want to make sure blocking mode is enabled whenever you are using this one to make sure it doesn't send too many ingredients if you have multiple being crafted at once. It'll only inject what can actually go in the slot per recipe, and you're good to go. Like I said, it is just too good sometimes. Now, by placing this in just like so, we now have connected to one side of the controller, allowing 32 channels directly into this wireless connector. And that's pretty darn cool because this makes setting up a point-to-point very easy. We don't have to worry about any sort of point-to-point setup. This right here takes the place of that and allows us to take this other connector and allows us to place it down and gain access to those particular channels. So I'm going to place this down right here, just like this. And then what I need to do is I need to right click this, just right click it once. Don't have to shift right click or anything. And then just go to the other one and just make sure they're linked together. Now you can only link 2 of these together like this, but they are essentially bound from one position to this position as acting as a pass through, which is very fantastic considering this now gives us access to those channels. So now I should be able to use these channels to connect up a storage bus to the bottom of that latex storage tank. And I want to click this partition button just to make sure that it knows that this fluid is what can go in and out of here in case we draw too much out. And I like to set the priority to 1 when dealing with any external things, making sure that it will try to go into here first before it would go into any of our cells. And then I just need to grab the cable and get it connected up, and we will notice once we have this done that we should see in Industrial Foregoing now our latex in our storage. Now you know what, I also want to store infinite water, and I think what I'm going to do is just down here, just kind of hidden away, I'm going to place in a sink, and this allows me to connect up to this. We'll store that, and this should be set to water. And all I have to do is make sure my priority is high, and now we have infinite water essentially able to be accessed through our Applied Energistics system as well, which we're definitely going to need. because we are going to need this machine right here, a latex processing unit, which is going to need power, water, and we're also going to need our latex. Now, after a little bit of testing, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get this to do what I really wanted it to. I wanted to use an ME interface here, and I wanted to supply the water and latex, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the machine wants to be able to pull both water and latex. It's only accessing this first slot. So what I have here, I just have it filling up with latex. That is fine. It's able to pull automatically from the machine underneath the pull section. But the water, well, we're going to have to change this. And what I'm going to do is have the back of the machine pull, and I'm just going to place a sink directly on the back. And I think that's going to work for right now. I could use an exporter, I think, to export. But what I'm wanting to see, yes, is the water filling up. So now we have all of this and it's starting to produce that dry rubber. But I'm definitely starting to encounter more issues than I expected because for some reason I also can't deposit because it's, I guess, trying to access this first slot. And yeah, so the dry rubber itself is just going to have to build up in here for right now. Typically it should deposit, but for some reason it's not wanting to push the items into here, probably because that first slot is filled. This is definitely strange and seems like a kind of a weird quirk that's happening right now. And to be fair, we're not going to keep this machine running for very long. We just need enough plastic right now to get our other setup up and going. So now, speaking of other machines, it's time for the dissolution chamber. And automating this could not be simpler with Applied Energistics. All we're going to need is simply a pattern provider that is going to be on the bottom, that is going to send the inputs. And so long as we have this set up right, it should work. For example, we need the bottom to be set to pull, the fluid set to pull, and we also need the output set to push on the bottom because we're going to place the pattern provider on the bottom. Everything else should be fine. I'm not even going to worry about the fluid output here. Just all I need to do here is place in the pattern provider and connect up my cables, and we're ready to go for automation. Now, in my opinion, one of the best and first things to definitely automate in Industrial Foregoing is going to be your speed, your efficiency, and your processing tier 2 upgrades. And these all require latex inside of the dissolution chamber. So it's also one of the first best things, I think, to get up and start to learn how the automation process works. And now something you'll notice whenever I do set up the pattern for this is that the liquid actually goes in here. So yes, you don't have to worry about the liquids at all. It will automatically fill the liquids for you, which is so nice. So I put the patterns like this in here. I make sure I have all of my prerequisite patterns that are needed for just standard auto crafting. And now I should be able to craft the first one. And hopefully this will work. Let's make sure that our pattern provider is set up correctly. I typically like to make sure this is set to blocking mode for this machine as well. It's kind of important. And with that, we now can, for example, craft a speed upgrade. And we should see the items automatically go in here and the fluids. And so it starts. And of course, all of our first upgrades that we get set up, I think the first thing that they need to go in is, of course, the dissolution chamber itself. And you'll start to dramatically see an upgrade in speed, like instantaneously once we get all of these things put in here. So there we go. That's done. And last but not least, the processing. And there's all 3 speed upgrades. And most machines in this mod can receive those, including our fluid extractors. Now, there are technically 3 other fluids that we're going to need to be able to utilize just about every machine and make every machine inside of Industrial Foregoing, which I'm going to say is going to be definitely necessary. But one is going to involve a slaughter factory. So we need to convert one of our mob farms into producing this. Now, I think one of the best ways to do this, now that we have a ton of EMC, is by simply converting our standard mob farm over here into one that actually produces 2 different fluids using the mob slaughter factory. So let's go ahead and first start by shutting this thing off because, yes, this thing is ridiculous in what it can actually do. And oh boy, already has a ton of EMCs simply stored in here that I haven't gathered in quite a while. So let's go ahead and grab that. There we go. Now, to set this up, it's going to be not too difficult, actually, and we can probably tap into this side to do this. We just need to give the mob slaughter factory some power, and we need to give it a range upgrade. Now, this range upgrade should be more than sufficient. So if I turn this on, we'll be able to see that it covers this area quite fine. And we can probably leave all of this on, to be fair, for this to actually work, because it's going to work pretty quick. So the reason we have all of these slots here, so we can have a range upgrade and those upgrades. And let's grab a gate and give this some power. And I'll turn off that so we don't have to worry about seeing that anymore. But essentially what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to link 2 entangled blocks to this machine. So I'm going to have meat that's going to go and push to the left side. And then I'm going to have the pink slime that this generates push to the right side. We just need to entangle these into their respective tanks, just like the other one. So for example, I'll shift right click to link this. This will be our pink slime tank. And then I'll go back and forth. And then we just need to tap in here by right clicking. There we go. That's the pink slime tank. And then just do this exact same for the other. Like it's that simple. And I mean, this is a great way to localize instead of using ender tanks. So you can use ender tanks, but this is a great way for like local non-cross dimensional stuff to work. Like this works great across certain distances. And now it does have a block distance limitation in the overworld, but believe me, it is very far. And so now with this set up, we should be able to let it rock and roll. So let's turn our mob farm back on. And what we should notice is this actually generating liquid meat and pink slime. Now passive mobs, it typically does better with when it comes to that pink slime. So we will be generating more liquid meat, but whenever this buffer fills up, it isn't going to cause any problems with our pink slime generation or vice versa. And we should be able to leave both farms up and running. And now, just as you would expect, we have pink slime over here and we have liquid meat over here. And so now with pink slime starting to store up, this allows us to start getting into higher tier machines. And we are going to need these machine frames and we're going to need them auto crafted. So first tier is in the dissolution chamber is going into the simple machine frame. That one's pretty straightforward. But now we need pink slime to go into the advanced version in which we just actually unlocked. This also requires netherite scrap, and things can start to get a little bit more expensive from here. Considering to move on to the next tier, well, we're going to need to drain the wither of yes, it's farts. You heard me right. Now for this next step, I kind of want this to be here. I want to be able to, well, farm the wither farts actually in the base. And I want to cut out a hole here that is going to have the wither like front and center inside of this research facility. And this is where we're going to be doing the testing on the wither. Oh, this is going to be so good. Now I'm using a combination of these tinted glass to prevent the wither from escaping just in case. This is going to have tinted glass right here. We're going to wrap it on the window seal. And on the inside, I do want to modify it. So I've made it thick enough to make sure that I can go ahead and decorate it, for example, with these anti-blocks, because I think anti-blocks look really good. For example, this is what that's going to look like right here. So give this sort of like interesting atmosphere that is going to be on the interior of this. And I think it fits that research vibe. But yeah, essentially right here is going to be a stasis chamber, and we are going to stasis the wither. And then we're going to also use a fluid drill to be able to pull some fluids out of this wither. Now, the easiest way to explain the setup for this is to simply show you. So we are going to use a stasis chamber, and this is going to hold the wither in place. And then I need to go up 3 blocks above that. So 1, 2, 3, and this is where the wither's actually going to chill out. So we'll actually build the wither here, and then directly on top of that, we are going to utilize a industrial foregoing fluid laser drill. Very specific, it has to be the fluid version. Now, I am going to also place in my drills, and you can place these directly connected to it, or you can leave spacing. In my case, I want to kind of keep it nice and kind of compact here. So I'm going to be placing these directly on this, just like so. And of course, you can place more of these. It's just that the drill has to be within the range. So you can place up to 2 blocks out or what have you, just so long as it is within range, and you can make a lot of these. So something to kind of keep in mind. So this essentially allows us access to this. Now we are going to also want a purple laser lens in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the output for the fluid to push up to the top, and that's going to push into this entangled block up here, and which I'm going to have entangled for our research to this jumbo tank right here. So there we go. So now anything that is produced from this is going to send into here. Now we also need gates, because these are going to need some power right off the bat. And we can put some upgrades in here if we want. The only thing that needs power, however, is the laser drills. Also, this needs power. So I'm going to break through the bottom here, and I'm going to place in power on the bottom here. And the bad part about this thing, and the reason why I encased it in this tinted glass, is we're dealing with the wither here. And if we have any power loss issues, this will power off, which means the wither will technically escape. So you can expect these machines to potentially get destroyed if that happens. So make sure that you keep this thing powered. But I think outside of that, we should be good. I just need to clear this off and get the glass placed in and, well, get that wither spawned in, and we'll start producing ether gas. Notice, by the way, I also get stuck in here. Another little interesting tidbit about the stasis chamber is it's supposedly supposed to also heal what is stasis in it. And that little fact is important, especially considering down the road, we are going to want to stasis a warden and also harvest it, which it will take damage, but the stasis chamber can apparently heal it. So I guess without further ado, let's get this wither spawned in. And so I'm going to spawn it in the good old fashioned way, like so. And there we go. We now have a wither that is inside there, stasised up, and we should be producing gas. So it will slowly but surely, hopefully start filling into here. And of course, without any upgrades, we won't see anything right away, but there we go. Ether gas, we have 10 millibuckets. It is a pretty slow process unless you add more of these. Now, something you're gonna notice right off the bat, that sound is awful, and I 100% agree. And also, the potential of having a boss bar is pretty bad, but we can get rid of that by placing down a wither boss death muffler. And if you right click this, it will prevent you from seeing boss bars. So you won't hear the death, but you also won't hear that. Now, we are going to have to get rid of that ambient wither noise, and that is where setting up one of these other sound filters is going to play a role. So of course 16, and then go ahead and accept that, and then wither, and just wither ambient is what we want to get rid of. It's pretty annoying sound, and there we go. So outside of that, there shouldn't be really any sounds happening from this. We should just be able to see that a wither is sitting there just being tested on nonstop. I promise all of this research is 100% ethical. So I've been told. Now, I'm pretty sure I do have the power for this. Each one of these nodes should give 5,000 RF per tick, which should be more than enough. And I do want to speed these up by just placing in at least the basic upgrades inside here. And the middle one can receive upgrades, but it's a little bit different. It doesn't receive the same type of upgrades, and I think only 2 of them work. And so now with that, we have access to the Supreme Machine Frame, which does require another ingot, but also ether gas. And that is going to allow us to make a ton of high-tier machines. And so now we've essentially unlocked all of the possibilities of Industrial Foregoing. Well, beside one, there's a new add-on that is called Industrial Foregoing Souls that is amazing and allows you to tick accelerate, but that is going to involve an entirely different research, essentially us researching the Warden. But now truly one of the main reasons for getting through this is to prep myself for this Wither section, because I need a Wither Builder, and the Wither Builder requires a Supreme Machine Frame. So all of this progress was to technically help us get that Wither plushie. And so now that we have our pattern in here, this should be ready to go. Like the only thing left to do is just get this hooked in and make sure I get my cables connected up to this. So now with that machine frame ready to go, it's going to go through each individual tier until we reach the final one, which should be produced just now. And there we go. So now we have a machine frame, and I should be able to take on and make this Wither Builder. Kind of. I actually have to take on several more withers first. So I want to head over here and I want to grab some wither skulls, because I'm going to take this to the end and I want to set up a bunch of withers all at once, all the ones we're going to need to complete this, and just simply take them all out in one go. Now, I don't know about you, but I love to use the end as a testing ground for things like these. So for example, let's go ahead and line this up, and then I will just extend this all the way out. And by the way, for the quest, we're going to need, let's see, not any for that. Oh, we're also going to need some mobs in here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think we need 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, and then of course 9. So we need at least 9 in one go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then I will go ahead and get these 2 skulls placed in. And I'm pretty sure I can use this to also place those skulls. Just like so. And I should be able to get these to spawn in all in one go by simply clicking here. And all of the withers have just spawned in. And I should be able to take them all out as soon as they do their whole blast thing. All right. And they are all gone. That fast. It's literally ridiculous. But there we go. There's 9 stars. So now I should be able to make the Wither Builder, and there's one central part done. And this is cool because the Wither Builder allows you to automate the building of the Wither, allowing you to automate the Wither, which is very, very easy to do. And once you have that sort of set up, which we are going to get set up eventually, it'll allow us to automate the production of the Nether Stars. Now, the only other thing I think we need is this solidification chamber and also a melting chamber. These are both going to need gates to give them some power, just like so. And we essentially need to use this to craft up cyclic components. Now, the major components being the crystallized amber and the crystallized obsidian. Both of these are super important. The first one we need is this one, which will be fire charges, but we're also going to need honey. We can either use honey or we can actually use magma. And to get magma, we can take magma blocks like so, and we can place this inside the chamber here. And I believe the solidification, oh, actually it's the melting chamber, right? The melting chamber is the one that will melt this down. And then we just need to pipe it over. Now, of course, I've got to show you the weirdest piping method you could possibly use, and that is going to be industrial foregoing conveyor belts. I'm going to be using an extraction on this side and an insertion on this side. And yes, they can send fluids, but it does look like it is also pulling the items out of here as well. It's just kind of cursed that it's doing that, but it is pulling the fluids. You can see it happening right there. Very, very interesting. So once I have this stuff made, oh boy, we can already start to make a ton of very powerful charms. And I think that's one of the primary uses for Cyclic, is all of the cool charms and stuff you can make that really help amplify the power scale, or power creep as most would say. And I don't know about you, but I love feeling powerful in my video games, and this is definitely one way to do it. Now, something I need to do is yoink up a cow, because for the end here, we're also going to need to get ourselves a wither rose. And the best way to do that is to summon a wither and let that wither actually kill one of these mobs, and that will drop a wither rose. Now, I'm not sure how exactly you go about doing this. Like, I don't know if it 100% matters, but I typically like to spawn it in, and then just right before this thing's about to explode, we make sure that this is nearby. There's the flashing, and that should, yes, drop a rose. And you can see the rose right here. Perfect. And that's EMCable. So now one of the major steps for Cyclic is technically done. We can now make ourselves a wither charm, and we're also going to need a few other wither charms, being this bad boy right here, which we are going to need some, I guess, reliquary items for. So just like that, we should have plenty of this. Ooh, we are going to need slime, which I think we have as well. Perfect. Just grabbing all of these things out one by one. And voila, we have the essence, which can be stored. Very nice. And this should be everything. I think I have a rose. Yes, perfect. And this allows us to make the wither roses, which is from reliquary, which do the same thing as the wither charm here, should prevent us from taking wither damage. This is with a nether stars enchanting this rose. The holder is protected from withering. Very, very nice. And that is almost it. We also need the glyph of the wither, which we can't exactly get right now, kind of, but we can make the everlasting backpack upgrade. And so just like that, we now have almost everything. I think primarily on all of these items, we have to still take on the evoker, but we're getting very, very close to actually having this whole section done. We need to get into Ars just a little bit, Ars Nouveau, which is going to be happening very, very soon. That is going to be a huge project though, because Ars Nouveau, believe it or not, has and plays a huge role in this pack. But I think for now, I will just get these items stored away, and now we know we have a ton of new upgrade abilities. We can jump into this pack a bit deeper, and technically I think I should upgrade these tanks into better versions of them now that we have ether gas, but that'll be something we can do in the next episode, because today we are essentially all out of time. But I hope you did enjoy today's episode, and hopefully you learned something new, whether that was about industrial foregoing, or about Cyclic, or about any of the other things that we touched on today, Applied Energistics being one of those. So guys, if you would, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, give this video a huge thumbs up, and comment down below. What is your opinion on the fluid harvesting of Industrial Foregoing. I would love to know what your thoughts are about this mod. And of course, with that, it's now time for me to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to Left Shark. Thank you so much for your amazing support, by the way, choosing to support me over on the Discord and by becoming a Discord premium member and honestly supporting in one of the best ways possible. Thank you so much, you absolute boss. And of course, guys, be sure to check out the Discord, link down in the description below, or you can go to discord.gg/chosenarchitect and join the amazing crew today. I thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. And yet again, as always, thanks for watching. Bye.